In the ancient land of Greece, myths whispered through marble temples and sunlit hills. The wind carried stories of gods and heroes, their voices woven into the breath of time. Among them rose Athena, radiant and eternal, born not of earth, but of pure thought. She was the daughter of Zeus, yet unlike any other, springing forth with wisdom fully grown. Her presence was calm, her gaze steady, her spirit filled with light rather than thunder. Athena was not a goddess of fury, but of clarity, guiding hearts with reason and justice. Where chaos threatened, she brought order. Where darkness spread, she lit the path of knowledge. The people looked to her as guardian, teacher, and protector of cities and their dreams. She carried the olive branch, not to strike, but to offer peace and lasting growth. She carried the owl, symbol of sight, vision, and the stillness that reveals truth. From the heights of Olympus, Athena's voice echoed, not loud but steady and enduring. And so begins the tale of her eternal triumph. A story not of battles, but of wisdom. High above the clouds of Olympus, a silence deeper than thunder filled the halls of the gods. Zeus, the ruler of the heavens, carried within him a strange and unbearable weight of thought. Whispers spread among the immortals, wondering what force stirred within their mighty king. The skies trembled, not with storms, but with the birth of something unseen and timeless. From the mind of Zeus, radiant and fierce, Athena emerged, full of grace and clarity. No child's cry marked her arrival, only the pure stillness of wisdom taking form. She stepped forth, tall and bright, clothed in armor not for war but for protection. Her eyes shone like the first dawn, steady and calm, reflecting the light of eternity. The gods marveled, for never before had such a birth graced the halls of Olympus. No mother bore her, no cradle held her. She was thought made flesh and spirit. Athena's presence carried balance, a promise of order against the tides of chaos. She lifted her shield, not to strike, but to guard the fragile hopes of mortals. She raised her spear, not for conquest, but as a symbol of courage guided by reason. The owl flew to her shoulder, a companion of vision, seeing truth beyond the veil. From the very beginning, she was more than strength. She was clarity woven with light. The other gods looked upon her and knew she was unlike any before her time. Zeus himself, though king of thunder, bowed in respect to her wisdom and calm. She walked among the halls with a quiet step, her presence echoing louder than storms. The earth below stirred, for a new guardian had come to guide humanity's path. Mortals would soon know her touch not as fire, but as counsel and gentle command. Her story would be sung not in blood, but in olive branches and whispered counsel. Athena's birth was not the beginning of conflict, but the dawn of enduring balance. She carried within her the power of thought, stronger than any sword or lightning. The world awaited her guidance, though it did not yet know the depth of her gift. From the mind of a god, a new force had entered the mortal and divine alike. She was the promise that wisdom would walk beside strength and temper its fire. She was the light that would shape cities, laws, and dreams for countless generations. Even in her first moments, Athena's triumph was not a victory won, but a truth revealed. The truth that the mind could rule more deeply than storms or battles ever could. As she stood on Olympus, the wind carried her name across mountains and seas. Athena, the eternal daughter of thought, the goddess whose birth was the dawn of wisdom. The sun rose over the land of Attica, its light spilling across rocky hills and quiet shores. The people of the land thrived, but longed for a guardian to bless their growing city. They turned their eyes to Olympus, seeking a divine protector who would bring lasting prosperity. Two mighty gods answered, each eager to claim the devotion of mortals below. Poseidon, lord of the sea, rose from the waters with trident flashing in the sun. He struck the earth with power, and a spring surged forth from the rock itself. Its waters sparkled, clear and endless, a gift born of the god's deep domain. The people watched in awe, for the sea was vast and fierce, promising strength and trade. Yet the water tasted of salt, and it carried with it the burden of storms. Then Athena stepped forward, calm and radiant, her presence quiet yet commanding. She touched the ground with her hand, and from the soil rose an olive tree. Its branches spread wide, its leaves silver, its fruit rich with oil and promise. The people marveled, for the tree offered food, warmth, medicine, and the gift of peace. It was a gift not of force, but of life, endurance, and quiet prosperity. The council of mortals gathered, weighing the gifts of the two mighty gods. Would they choose the power of waves, or the steady strength of the olive? Voices rose in debate, hearts torn between awe and the promise of gentle survival. Poseidon's spring was mighty, but wild, its blessing touched by tempests and endless tides. Athena's tree was humble, but enduring, its roots deep and its fruits eternal. At last the people chose the tree, the promise of balance over the roar of seas. They lifted their hands to Athena, naming her their guardian and their eternal protector. The city took her name, Athens, a tribute to the goddess of wisdom and peace. Athena looked upon them with grace, her eyes calm as dawn upon the mountains. She blessed their soil, their homes, their temples, weaving her spirit into the city's heart. The olive tree stood as her gift, its branches whispering through centuries of sun and rain. It became a symbol not of conquest, but of patience, growth, and the rhythm of life. The people learned to harvest oil, to light lamps, to heal, and to prosper in peace. Under Athena's guidance, Athens became a city not only of strength, but of wisdom. Its streets would one day echo with philosophers, artists, and voices of free thought. Temples rose in her honor, the Parthenon gleaming as a crown upon the Acropolis. Travelers from distant lands spoke of Athens, a city born of wisdom's gentle triumph. The sea raged beyond the horizon, but the olive tree remained, steady and unmoved. In its shade, children played, councils met, and dreams of greatness were sown. Athena's gift was simple, yet eternal, shaping not just a city, but an entire age. Her triumph was not in the splendor of the moment, but in the centuries that followed. For every branch that swayed, her spirit whispered of peace, growth, and the triumph of wisdom. And so Athens, under her watchful gaze, became a beacon of thought for the world. In the growing heart of Athens, voices of the people rose like the steady rhythm of waves. They built homes, temples, and councils, but they needed more than stone to shape their lives. They needed fairness, guidance, and a hand to steady the scales of right and wrong. Athena, guardian of the city, heard their call and came forth in quiet grace. She was not a goddess of fire, nor a thunderer of quick judgment and wrath. Her justice was patient, born from thought, tempered by wisdom, and balanced by compassion. She stood among the mortals, not to rule, but to guide their hearts toward harmony. When disputes broke out, she did not raise her spear. She lifted her voice. Her words flowed like rivers, calm and clear, washing away the clouds of anger. She taught that true justice was not the triumph of one, but the peace of all. The people gathered in councils, speaking, listening, learning the art of fair resolution. Athena's owl watched from above, eyes wide, silent, yet filled with quiet understanding. Every glance of the owl reminded mortals that truth hides beneath the surface of words. It urged them to look deeper, to see motives, to weigh actions with care. Athena guided kings, teaching them that crowns are not shields for selfish desires. She reminded rulers that power without justice was emptiness, a shadow without form. In her presence, disputes settled like waves, calming after a long storm at sea. Farmers laid down their anger, merchants restored trust, families found peace within her wisdom. The city began to see justice not as punishment, but as balance restored. And balance became the rhythm of Athens, the heartbeat of its growing soul. Athena's gift was not only the olive tree, but also the laws that shaped lives. These laws were not chains, but paths guiding the people toward unity and fairness. They were woven with reason, not fear, carried by choice rather than force. Her spirit walked beside judges, whispering restraint, urging fairness, reminding them of compassion. No decision was hers alone, for she taught mortals to share the weight of judgment. The council of Areopagus, high upon the hill, was blessed under her watchful gaze. There, voices joined together, seeking not victory, but the harmony of a just end. In every choice, Athena's presence lingered, like a quiet song carried on the wind. Mortals felt her strength not in commands, but in the courage to act fairly. Her triumph was not loud, but steady, shaping minds, guiding hearts, building trust. The people began to honor her not only as a goddess of war and craft. They praised her as a goddess of law, of clarity, of justice shining in the dark. Her temples held not just statues, but the hopes of those who longed for fairness. Torches burned, olive branches stood, owls carved in stone watched with silent vigilance. Athena's justice became the unseen foundation of Athens, stronger than marble or bronze. Her triumph was eternal. For while cities might crumble, fairness could never be destroyed. Through her, the people learned that justice is the guardian of all lasting peace. And so Athena, wise and patient, stood forever as the voice of balance and law. In every age of heroes, Athena's voice rose not in battle cries, but in steady counsel. She was the unseen hand that guided mortals when courage alone could not win the day. When Perseus faced the terror of Medusa, Athena stood beside him with wisdom, not force. She gave him a polished shield, shining like a mirror, to see without meeting the gaze. "Use your mind, not your eyes," she whispered, her words soft as wind upon the sea. Perseus followed her counsel, and with cleverness, he triumphed where strength would have failed. It was not the blade that saved him, but the goddess who taught him how to see. Her wisdom turned fear into victory, and her guidance lived on in the stories of men. So too did she guide Odysseus, the wanderer, clever and bold, yet often lost in pride. Athena favored him, not for his strength, but for his wit, his restless and questioning mind. Through storms and trials, she whispered to him, shaping plans that outwitted gods and men alike. She taught him patience, to wait for the right moment, to act when wisdom called. Without her voice, his journey home would have ended in despair and forgotten silence. Her wisdom was his compass, her counsel the lantern through the long nights of the sea. And when Heracles bore his endless labors, Athena's presence steadied his weary heart. She lent him guidance in tasks where raw power would have torn him apart. She taught him that strength is nothing without direction, that force needs the balance of thought. In every trial, Athena stood not with weapons drawn, but with reason as her shield. She was not the roar of battle, but the quiet thought before the strike. Her gift to heroes was not victory alone, but the knowledge of why they fought. She made them more than warriors. She made them men of wisdom, patience, and purpose. Athena never sought glory in their tales, but her spirit was woven in every triumph. Without her, Perseus was only a boy with a sword, Odysseus a wanderer adrift. Without her, Heracles was only a brute, strong but blind to the meaning of his path. With her, they became legends, their names carried through centuries on the wings of story. Heroes praised her, though often they knew not how deeply her wisdom shaped their fate. She was the whisper in the silence, the thought before action, the calm before storms. Athena's triumph was not hers alone, but the triumph of every mortal she guided. The olive tree's branches stretched over heroes as surely as they stretched over cities. Its roots grew in their choices, its fruits ripened in their victories and their peace. Her counsel proved that even the mightiest fall without the clarity of thought beside them. For what is a hero without wisdom, but a shadow of power without light? Athena gave them light, not to blind, but to see the path that strength could not. And in guiding them, she guided the world, shaping tales that outlived both gods and men. Her triumph was eternal, not in the clash of arms, but in the triumph of wisdom. In a quiet village, far from the thunder of Olympus, a girl named Arachne wove her dreams. Her hands moved with skill, threads flowing like rivers, forming patterns no one had ever seen. She wove birds in flight, flowers in bloom, and stories of gods across her bright cloth. Her gift drew whispers of wonder, yet pride crept into her heart like a silent flame. She began to boast that her skill surpassed even the goddess of craft and wisdom. "Why honor Athena," she said, "when my hands create wonders no immortal could rival?" The people trembled at her words, for to challenge a goddess was no small claim. Yet Athena did not answer with thunder, nor with wrath, but with quiet curiosity. She came disguised as an old woman, her steps slow, her eyes wise and kind. She asked Arachne to be humble, to honor the gifts given by the gods. But Arachne refused, her pride sharp as steel, her voice unbending before counsel. Then Athena revealed herself, bright and radiant, her presence filling the humble room. She spoke not in anger, but with calm, offering Arachne a fair contest of weaving. Looms were set, threads prepared, and the challenge began under the watch of mortals. Athena wove scenes of the gods, their power, their gifts, their place in the world. Her work shone with balance, each thread a lesson, each color a mark of harmony. Arachne wove too, her hands quick, her patterns sharp, filled with beauty and defiance. Her skill was unmatched, her images alive, yet her work mocked the immortals in pride. The people gasped, for her weaving was flawless, yet her message burned with arrogance. Athena looked upon the cloth, and her heart was heavy, not with anger, but sorrow. She saw talent twisted by pride, a gift poisoned by the hunger for glory. Yet she did not strike Arachne down, nor curse her with pain or fire. Instead, Athena touched her gently, transforming her form into that of a small spider. No blood, no cries, only a quiet change, as threads flowed now from Arachne's body. She would weave forever, her gift unchanged, but her pride tempered by endless labor. The people watched in silence, learning the lesson carried in the goddess's mercy. Skill without humility is emptiness, and pride without respect is a fragile thread. Athena returned to Olympus, her heart calm, her judgment wise and without cruelty. Arachne spun in corners, her webs glistening, reminders of both beauty and a warning. Her story lived on, whispered in homes, teaching mortals of pride and the goddess's patience. Athena's triumph was not in breaking, but in shaping, turning arrogance into eternal craft. She proved that wisdom is not the crushing of mistakes, but the guiding of growth. Every web glistening in the morning light carried her lesson across the ages. And so Athena's victory was quiet, not thunderous, but lasting as the silver threads of time. High upon the shining halls of Olympus, the gods gathered to decide the fate of a great city. It was a place of promise, a land rich with rivers, hills, and seas, waiting for a divine protector. Two mighty deities stepped forth to claim it: Poseidon, the ruler of seas, and Athena, the wise. Poseidon lifted his trident, striking the earth, and a spring of salt water rose in the ground. The water rushed with power, a gift of might, but its taste was bitter, and its promise uncertain. Then Athena stepped forward, calm and radiant, and planted a seed within the earth. From that seed grew an olive tree, its branches silver, its fruit full of life and peace. The people looked upon both gifts, strength from the sea and wisdom from the earth. They saw that power was fleeting, but the olive gave food, oil, and wood for generations. The choice was made, and the city honored Athena, naming their land Athens in her glory. Poseidon raged, the sea rising high, storms swirling in his wounded pride and anger. Yet Athena stood calm, her tree unshaken, its roots deep, its promise eternal in the soil. The people built temples to her, raising white marble pillars to touch the heavens. They lit fires for her, sang hymns, and wove her wisdom into the heart of their laws. Athens grew not by force, but by learning, debate, art, and the light of philosophy. Her triumph was not in conquest, but in the shaping of a city that treasured the mind. Under her gaze, Athens became the cradle of thought, a place where reason ruled the day. She guided lawmakers, poets, and thinkers, whispering clarity into their restless dreams. The olive tree became the symbol of her gift, of peace, of endurance, of life itself. It grew in the heart of the city, a living reminder of wisdom's eternal triumph. The Athenians knew that wars would come, but the roots of wisdom ran deeper than swords. When armies marched, it was Athena's guidance that shaped the strategies of defense. She did not abandon her people to fear, but gave them foresight in the darkest of times. Her presence lived not only in temples, but in the very spirit of the city's people. Every debate in the Agora, every verse spoken in theater, bore her silent influence. The olive oil lit lamps that shone at night, just as her wisdom lit the path of life. The fruits fed the hungry, the branches crowned victors, the wood built ships for trade. In every gift, her hand was seen, not in force, but in the quiet strength of thought. Her victory over Poseidon was not the end of a contest, but the beginning of an age where Athens shone like a star, a beacon of ideas in a world of shifting empires. Athena's triumph was eternal because it was rooted in what endures beyond time. Power crumbles, but wisdom grows. Storms pass, but trees take root in earth forever. So Athens lived on, not in fear of the sea, but in reverence of the goddess of wisdom. And each time the olive's leaves rustled in the wind, her eternal triumph was remembered. When the world turned restless and mortals raised walls of stone, Athena walked among them unseen. She was not a goddess of distant thunder, but a presence felt in every plan and design. Her wisdom flowed into the minds of builders who dreamed of cities shaped by order and balance. From her came the spark of geometry, the careful measure of line, weight, and harmony. She taught that beauty was not chaos, but the meeting of form and purpose in perfect union. Streets unfolded like veins of thought, straight and steady, leading to the heart of the polis. Temples rose with symmetry, columns standing tall as guardians of reason and clarity. In every stone laid, her hand was present, guiding masons toward harmony with the earth. Athena's gift was not in power alone, but in giving mortals the tools to shape their world. She whispered of arches, of balance, of strength hidden within simplicity of design. Her vision was a city where wisdom and order lived not in scrolls alone, but in walls of stone. Athens became her living temple, each building a verse in her hymn of structure and reason. The Parthenon stood brightest, not as a fortress, but as a symbol of devotion and balance. Its columns reached to the heavens. Its sculptures told stories of gods, men, and the eternal. Every line was measured, every proportion tuned, as though the stones themselves breathed wisdom. The people entered not with fear, but with reverence, touched by the calm of sacred order. Even the marketplace, the Agora, was shaped by her hand, where voices of debate filled the air. It was a place not only of trade, but of ideas, where philosophy grew like olive branches. Here, Athena's spirit lingered, not in commands, but in the courage to question and seek truth. She guided orators in words, thinkers in puzzles, and teachers in the shaping of young minds. Her wisdom was not locked in temples, but lived in the very rhythm of the city's breath. Every plaza, every column, every line of marble bore witness to her enduring presence. She taught mortals that true triumph lies not in conquest, but in the cities we build within. And so Athens flourished, not only with ships and soldiers, but with thinkers and creators. Her gift of architecture was more than stone. It was the shaping of a world of meaning. Other cities rose and fell, their ruins scattered like forgotten dreams on barren hills. But Athens endured, its balance and beauty standing as testimony to the goddess's gift. Each new generation looked upon its walls and found not only shelter, but inspiration. For in every structure they saw Athena's eternal triumph written in marble and thought. She showed them that strength fades, but harmony endures. Power breaks, but wisdom builds. And as long as the olive tree swayed in the wind, her spirit guided their hands in creation. Athena was more than protector of cities. She was the mind that shaped the very soul of Athens. And so the city shone, a beacon of wisdom and form, carrying her triumph through the ages. In the age when Athens stood proud, wars threatened to darken the brightness of its wisdom. The Persian armies marched, vast and unyielding, their numbers like waves upon the shore. Fear spread through the city, for even courage can falter before the shadow of endless foes. Yet Athena's spirit did not waver, her presence steady, guiding hearts with clarity and resolve. She spoke not of rashness, but of strategy, of patience, of seeing the battle before it began. Themistocles, wise among mortals, listened to her whispers carried like wind through thought. He saw not strength in meeting the enemy head-on, but in shaping the sea as a weapon. He called upon the Athenians to build ships, swift and light, to harness the wisdom of waves. The people labored, guided by her unseen hand, and soon a fleet shone under the sun. When the Persians came, the land trembled, but the Athenians turned to the sea for salvation. At Salamis, the narrow straits became the stage of wisdom triumphing over sheer power. The Persian fleet, vast and mighty, found itself trapped in waters too tight for its strength. Athens, guided by Athena, struck not with numbers, but with foresight and cunning design. The smaller ships moved with precision, swift as thought, striking where the sea commanded. The Persians faltered, their strength tangled in the very waters they thought to command. Victory came not from brute force, but from the clarity of vision that Athena bestowed. The people lifted their voices in gratitude, for they knew the goddess had stood among them. Her triumph was written not in conquest alone, but in the survival of freedom and thought. Athens lived, and with it lived the flame of learning, of debate, of the quest for wisdom. The olive tree still swayed in the breeze, its branches untouched by fire or destruction. From that day, the Athenians remembered that true power lay not in numbers, but in wisdom. Athena's gift was strategy, the ability to see beyond the chaos, to guide rather than to crush. She taught that even in war, there is victory not of destruction, but of preservation. For what is triumph if the city burns and the people fall into silence? Her triumph was eternal because it protected not only walls, but the very soul of Athens. Generations would tell the tale of the battle, not as one of blood, but of clever foresight. Themistocles became a name remembered, yet all knew whose voice had guided his mind. It was Athena's clarity that shone upon the waters, her wisdom that turned the tide of fate. Athens rose from fear into strength, its people bound by courage and guided by thought. They rebuilt, they debated, they sang, their lives enriched by the goddess's unseen touch. Her temples grew, but greater still was the temple of her spirit in the hearts of the people. They saw in her not only a goddess of war, but a guardian of wisdom, peace, and life. Every lamp lit by olive oil carried her flame, steady and eternal in the dark of night. Every debate in the Agora echoed her voice, urging men to think, to seek, to understand. And so the victory at Salamis became more than a battle. It became a symbol of Athena, a reminder that wisdom guides, foresight saves, and that her triumph endures beyond time. When wars faded and peace returned, Athena's presence lingered not only in arms, but in the arts of men. She was not the muse of fleeting songs, but the steady hand guiding thought into lasting form. In Athens, words became weapons, sharper than spears, and gentler than olive branches. Philosophers gathered in shaded groves, their voices weaving questions into patterns of reason. They sought not conquest, but understanding, not power, but truth in the fabric of life. It was Athena's gift that stirred their minds, opening paths where silence once stood still. Socrates walked among them, barefoot and humble, a seeker who questioned all certainties. He spoke of virtue, of the examined life, of wisdom born not from knowing, but from wonder. Athena's spirit was in his courage to challenge, to turn the gaze inward, toward the soul. His voice unsettled many, yet it carried the goddess's light, steady and unyielding. Plato, his student, shaped visions of justice, harmony, and the unseen forms of truth. His academy stood as a temple of thought, echoing the balance Athena had always taught. Aristotle, in turn, mapped the world with reason, tracing order in nature, ethics, and stars. Each of them bore her gift, each a flame lit by the eternal torch of her wisdom. In their words, Athens became more than a city. It became the heart of philosophy itself. The Agora filled with debate, voices rising like waves, seeking clarity in a sea of ideas. Every question asked was a tribute, every answer given a step closer to her triumph. For Athena's gift was not knowledge alone, but the courage to seek, to doubt, to learn. She showed that wisdom is not found in silence, but in the dialogue of restless minds. The theater, too, became her domain, where stories of men and gods unfolded on the stage. Tragedies spoke of fate and choice, comedies of folly and laughter, all under her watchful gaze. The playwrights crafted mirrors of life, teaching through story what words alone could not. Athena was present in each line, in every lesson woven into the fabric of performance. Art, too, flourished under her blessing, sculptors carving marble into living grace. Painters traced myths on vases, capturing moments of divine and mortal truth. Through their hands, beauty became not vanity, but a vessel of wisdom and memory. Athena's triumph lay in the harmony of thought and creation, reason and imagination. She made Athens a beacon not only of strength, but of art, philosophy, and human spirit. Her temple stood high, yet her true temple was in the words, the songs, the ideas of men. Even as centuries passed, her influence remained, a quiet echo in every thinker's voice. She was the light behind questions, the calm in reason, the balance in creation. Her eternal triumph was not only in victories of war, but in the victories of the mind. For armies may fade, cities may crumble, but thought endures, passed from voice to voice. And so Athena's legacy lived on, woven into the very essence of what it meant to be human. Her triumph was eternal because it touched not only the city of Athens, but the soul of mankind. In the heart of Athens, the Parthenon rose, a temple not only of stone, but of vision and faith. Its marble columns gleamed in the sunlight, a monument to wisdom, balance, and divine grace. The city poured its devotion into this masterpiece, offering beauty as a gift to the goddess. Athena was honored not through sacrifice of flesh, but through the creation of lasting wonders. The architects Ictinus and Callicrates shaped its form with precision, harmony, and care. Each stone was placed with reverence, each line a tribute to order and proportion. The sculptor Phidias breathed life into marble, shaping gods, heroes, and myths in pure form. The great statue of Athena stood at its center, gold and ivory gleaming in the sacred hall. She held shield and spear, yet her gaze was serene, a protector and teacher of her people. The Parthenon was more than a temple. It was a mirror of Athens' soul and aspiration. Within its walls, the city declared that wisdom and beauty endure beyond the reach of time. Travelers from distant lands gazed upon it in awe, marveling at its grandeur and meaning. It became a symbol not of conquest, but of human spirit, guided by divine inspiration. Every carving, every column told stories of gods, of struggles, and of triumph through wisdom. Athena's presence could be felt in the quiet marble, in the harmony of design and thought. The Parthenon taught that divinity could live not only in heavens, but in human creation. It showed that reverence is not always kneeling, but in building what uplifts the soul. The people gathered for festivals, their voices rising in hymns and dances of gratitude. The Panathenaic procession wound through the streets, a river of devotion flowing uphill. Citizens carried gifts, woven cloth, and offerings, each step a tribute to their guardian. The city glowed with music, laughter, and reverence, uniting rich and poor in common spirit. Through ritual, they remembered their bond, not just to Athena, but to each other. The Parthenon stood as the anchor of their faith, unshaken by the winds of passing time. It reminded them that Athena's triumph was not fleeting, but eternal, carved in stone. The temple watched over them as they debated, studied, and created within her embrace. Philosophy, art, and governance thrived beneath her gaze, nourished by her guiding hand. Even in silence, the Parthenon spoke. whispering the harmony of wisdom into the city. Its beauty did not demand, it inspired, drawing hearts to reflection, balance, and peace. Athena's triumph was not in force, but in the quiet strength of a people united in purpose. The temples shone at sunrise, its marble glowing gold as if kissed by the goddess herself. At sunset, it burned with crimson light, a beacon of memory and eternal devotion. Generations passed, yet the Parthenon remained, carrying the weight of their prayers and hope. It stood not as a relic, but as a living story of what Athena had gifted to humankind. For within its stones lay the eternal truth. Wisdom builds what time alone cannot destroy. Athena's victory was not only in battles fought, but in the beauty and thought that endured. And in the Parthenon, her triumph was eternal, a temple not of war, but of wisdom's light. The story of Athena does not end with the stones of temples or the echo of ancient hymns. Her spirit moves through time, carried on the breath of wisdom and the pursuit of truth. Empires rise and fall, yet her presence endures, quiet as thought, strong as reason itself. She is found not in conquest, but in the spark that guides a mind toward clarity and justice. Athena's triumph is eternal because it lives beyond the boundaries of age and place. Every scholar who opens a book, every child who asks a question, honors her flame. Her wisdom is in the courage to doubt, to seek and to dream beyond what is seen. The olive tree still grows, its branches whispering her lessons in the wind of history. It teaches resilience, the strength to bend without breaking, to endure with quiet dignity. The lamp fueled by olive oil still shines, its light a symbol of thought in the dark. In every debate, in every effort to find peace through reason, her voice can be heard. Athena shows that power without wisdom is hollow, and wisdom without compassion is cold. She reminds us that true triumph is not to dominate, but to preserve and to guide. The Parthenon may wear the scars of time, but its ruins still speak of harmony and vision. Travelers still stand in awe, feeling the weight of her presence in the silent marble. Her legacy cannot be broken, for it is carved into the heart of humanity itself. Each generation finds her anew, not in myth alone, but in the living act of seeking truth. She stands with the thinker, the artist, the leader who chooses justice over pride. She is with the teacher who inspires, the student who questions, the voice that seeks peace. Athena's eternal triumph lies in her ability to guide without chains, to teach without fear. Her light is gentle yet unyielding, steady through the storms of ignorance and greed. We honor her not with temples of stone, but with the temples of thought we build within. Every act of reason, every spark of creativity, every step toward fairness is her victory. Athena lives in the balance of mind and heart, in the marriage of strength and wisdom. She reminds us that humanity thrives not by might alone, but by vision and clarity. Her triumph is not a relic of the past. It is the foundation of the future we create. As long as there are questions to ask, her spirit will guide the answers we seek. As long as there is beauty to shape, her hand will steady the artist's touch. As long as there is justice to pursue, her wisdom will stand beside the brave. The eternal triumph of Athena is not in what was won, but in what continues to endure. For every age has its challenges, yet her gift remains, the courage to think and to act. She is not gone, for gods of wisdom cannot die. They live in every seeking heart. And so the story closes, not with an ending, but with a beginning renewed in every soul. The flame of Athena burns still, eternal, guiding us toward light, truth, and harmony.